Okay, so hi again everyone. We'll now have a presentation called High Performing Teams. It's not just about the process by Mrs. Indra Brooks. Indra, with 25 years of experience in both the public and private sectors, has a passion for working with organizations to effect meaningful, goal-oriented change, resulting in high-performing and inclusive team culture. She works to shift the focus in organizations to investments in culture, people, and mindset, and from short-term process concerns to long-term outcomes. Thank you.
So they invited me because you guys probably needed a dose of not so much tech for 40 minutes. And then they put me after the coffee break, so we're all hyped up on caffeine. What could be worse? But I'm going to ask you to do something really controversial right now and close your laptops. Bonus points for those already had them closed.
Can you use the microphone just
I
because
can.
of our
Oh,
online...
he tested me already. It should be okay. So 2 things to know about me. I don't stand still, and I didn't even have any coffee. And I'll forget to forward the slides. So as long as we all are okay with both of those, we're going to get through the next 35 minutes I think we have left now without any drama. So I was already given a good introduction, but if you want to know more about me, you can go to this page and read it, and we won't take up time. One thing to know, when we mentioned the public and the private sector, that really resonated with the talks we had this morning about the challenges of meeting the goals, and that we have all these sustainability goals, and we keep getting farther and farther behind, but we keep adding more goals. How do we ever expect to achieve anything if we just keep piling the list higher and higher and higher and higher, but every year we go more and more behind? Where are we going to get? If we change the way we're working, then that list becomes more attainable and more manageable. I normally talk about how this affects teams directly, but as we're going through this today, think about what we discussed this morning in the presentations about how we have those goals, and the way we're working right now isn't working. It's not working. It's not effective. So let's think about that as we go through today. I also made some decisions. I'm going to click through a couple slides and not even talk about them, because we're going to go completely low-tech today. And that's a bit unfair to the people on the video, because I did want them to get included in some of the discussion, but they can listen and follow along. So that's the slide we're going to skip over. So what are we going to talk about? What is agility? And no, it does not mean doing your yoga and your running and your fitness in the morning, although I could probably benefit from that because I'm likely to trip over these cords during this presentation. Why does it matter? Why is this important? Again, that's when you're going to think back to those talks this morning about how we're not meeting our goals. And what results could we see if we changed how we work and how we approach work? So what is agility? Surprise! You're going to tell me. All right. So I was going to have you do this on Mentimeter so we can make this beautiful word art collage, but we've had enough technical problems this morning, so we're not going to do that. So I need somebody to be super brave and shout out the first thing that comes to your mind when you hear the word agility. I didn't bring any prizes. I should have bought a bag of candy. Like, you know, the Mardi Gras when they throw the candy. All right, adaptation. What else do we think of when we hear the word agility? Efficiency. Efficacy. Fast. Flexible. Effortless. I might have to debate that one, because when you see me trip over this, it's not going to be effortless. Okay. What else? Stand up. Responsive. Just keep shouting. This isn't class. We don't have to raise our hands. And then everybody stops. Dance. Dancing. Not sloppy. Mobile. Adaptable. Dynamic. Anything else? I'm really proud of you guys. Nobody said Scrum or Kanban or XP. Kind of makes my next slide ineffective. This is usually what I hear when I ask people in the tech space what agility means to them. What I usually hear is, oh no, we do Scrum. We have stand-ups. We do retrospectives. And that's where it stops. What could be the problem with that? Going through the motions. You know, we went through the motions with Microsoft Project. Anybody still use Microsoft Project in your office? We can have a drink. Okay, I'm buying that man a shot later because he's going to need it. And then you sit through the meetings and you talk through every line in the project plan ad nauseum, and you adjust the dates and you shift the Gantt chart, and yeah. But if you do the same thing with agile frameworks like Scrum, and you're just like, well, we have a 15-minute stand-up every day, which about is the least inclusive word we can use. We do retrospectives. Every 2 weeks we do things. You're just doing a process. You're just going through the motions, and you're doing nothing different than reading every line in that Microsoft Project chart. It's just a tiny bit less painful. But this is what we see in the tech industry. 68% of companies that say they are agile mean that they're really doing Scrum. And then the other ones fall in. So what's so bad about that? The Agile Manifesto was written in 2001. Clearly somebody had a good idea, right? It's still around. What's bad about it? I'm not a footballer, but Nick Saban is a football coach, so he has things to say, apparently. A good process produces good results. Okay. What's wrong with that? Is good what we're going for? Is good enough what we're going for if we have to reach those goals and we keep failing? Because what we're doing right now is good, right? We're getting data, we're sharing data, we're talking about goals, but we're not moving forward. So good isn't good enough. Okay? So there's nothing wrong with process. We need process. We need to be on the same page. We need to share those common goals. We need to have a common way of getting there. But we can't stop there, because that's the problem now. We put all these goals in place, we put all this process in place, and then we go, it's not working. And if we focus on process, we're completely bypassing the fact that there are human beings involved in this. And when we work in the tech space, where's our comfort zone? Our laptops, right? The tech, the applications, Julia, the coding, and there's nothing wrong with any of that. But we have to come out from behind our laptops and take it to the next level. You know, back to the footballer examples. If all they did was practice every day and run plays, would they be a champion team? Maybe they'd get lucky, but likely not. What makes a champion team? It's not the plays. The people, the wheel, the team coming together as a team. They are champions because they come together as a team and they recognize they are a group of people working toward a common cause. And yes, they have to get the plays right, that's the process. Because if you don't get the plays right, well then you just have people running all over the field doing I don't know what, which sometimes that's what it looks to me like they're doing anyway. But they're not going to win that way. So they do need that process. They do need the training, they do need the discipline, they do need the tools, they do need the techniques. But they also need to recognize that they are a group of people that have the passion for the same thing and they want to achieve the same thing. Great. We're at a tech workshop and we've got this woman talking about fluffy bits, talking about be nice and get along. Yay. So, left brain, right brain. How many in this room think you're left-brained? That's another whole workshop, I think. How many people think you're right-brained? How many people have no idea what I'm even talking about? And you'd like me to get to the point. All right, take a look up here in this little itty bitty picture. Left and right. Left is our logic and structure. That's our process. That's our tools. That's the mechanics. Now, how many people in this room are left-brained? You should probably all have your hands up. Okay. Right brain, human-centered. Our values, our principles, our ethics. Now, how many people think that's where they fall? Yeah. Somebody was going to get the bonus prize. I actually did a psychological survey when I was in university, back in the dark ages, before we had computers, by the way. And they had made a hypothesis about how many people were going to be left-brained and how many people were going to be right-brained from their sample. And then in I roll, and I took the exam, and I scored 50-50. And they huddled, nervous students, trying to get their research results for their PhDs. This can't be possible. Our hypothesis says people are left-brained or right-brained. She's done something wrong. The test is flawed. We have to do this over again. And they had me do the test again. Anybody want to guess what the score was? You smart people in this room. 50-50. They huddled again. Oh my God, what are we going to do? This is messing everything up. Should we throw her results out? Yes, because when you're doing research, you should throw out some of the results. That always ends well. The professor who had me in class said, guys, do you think maybe your hypothesis is wrong? The looks on their faces, it's like telling you to close your laptops. Mm-hmm. Because I am 50-50 right brain, and that is like a double-edged sword. Because I like to know what the big picture is, but I will get into those weeds and those details like nobody's business. Anybody other than me have a packing list to get here? Oh, thank heavens, I thought I was the only one. All right. I would be lost if I didn't have my list because my brain is always going in 50 different directions, and that list helps me center and focus. That's what this is about. We need that logic and structure, but we also need to remember that there are values and ethics and principles driving all of that. And it doesn't start with the process, it ends with the process. The process is how we're going to achieve the goals. Does that make sense to everybody? Or you're like, no, just stop talking and let us open the laptops back up. Yeah? That makes some sense? And this is what it looks like when we focus. So the first line of the Agile Manifesto says, we would rather focus on people and interactions than process and tools. And that's a hard pill for people to swallow, especially the people with the money. Because we all understand buying software and software subscriptions. We all understand buying tools. We all understand paying for people to go to classes to learn process, right? But then I show up and I go, but can't we think about the people? Can't we send the people for training? Can't we let the people figure out how they want to interact? And they go, well, yeah, but they need certifications. So it's a hard one. But when we focus on the people and interactions, we create inclusive and safe spaces where even crazy people like me talking about interactions feel comfortable showing up at a conference with a whole bunch of people that want to talk about data and process. That, and I'm also a bit fearless. We collaborate, we innovate, we grow because we have that space where we can do that. We inspect, we adapt, and we improve. And guess what? When we start doing that, we don't keep doing things the same way over and over and expecting different results. We don't keep creating SDGs year after year after year and then report that they're not getting where we want to go. I expect that something is somehow going to change. And we have transparency, visibility, and somebody said it earlier, flexibility. So it just shifts the narrative from the tools to how we're going to use those tools. And then thinking about the right tools. I'm sure we've all been in organizations where someone at some level made a decision that the company was going to use some tool. Maybe it's chat, maybe it's a coding language. And you're all sitting there going, but that's not how we work. That's not what we need. But it's been paid for, so we are going to use it. That's because we chose a tool without understanding how people want to work. And again, those things are important. The tools, the process, and the practices, they have to be there. I'm not saying chop the iceberg off at the top and get rid of it. But if we really want to make change, we need to focus on those principles, those values, and that mindset. And at the end, what are we trying to do? Now, people laugh at me because what are the first 3 letters of each of those words? A, D, D, and I actually have one that's H that goes in there somewhere as well. And, you know, maybe my little brain thought that that was a good way to explain it when I came up with this, but when we change how we work, we always want to focus on avoiding delays. That's kind of important, isn't it? Decreasing the risk, because at the end of the day, most of us are risk averse, aren't we? We don't want to put work into something to find out that we did it for no reason, or that it created a bigger problem. And deliver value. How many people have been to a meeting and you're sitting in the meeting going, why are we here? Some of you might be thinking that right now, and that's okay. That meeting, when you're thinking that, is not delivering value. So why are you there? Wouldn't it be amazing if you had leaders who allowed you to skip that meeting that didn't bring any value? Oh, what would happen then? I actually used to let my team do that. Because, you know, the biggest way to find out if something is effective and useful is let people choose if they're going to attend it. And they're like, you know, but the person who set up the meeting, they might get upset. Yep, they might. Because if you invite 25 people at a meeting and only 3 show up, you might get upset, but you might also think about, why did I just have this meeting? We have to do the same thing with everything. If the work that we are doing is not bringing value, stop doing it. It's like when you go on a diet and then you don't lose weight. What happens? Do you keep doing it for 6 months with no results? Most of us aren't going to last 6 days without results. Why would we do the same thing in work? Why would we keep doing something over and over and over again that doesn't get us where we want to go? So I say, whenever you're making those goals, whenever you're creating your work product, whenever you're deciding what are we doing this month, think about this. Is it going to help us avoid delays? Is it going to decrease risk? And is it going to deliver value? I have one group, they start with the last question first. Does this deliver value? Nope, let's stop talking about it. Just move on. Don't keep doing it. So, why does this matter? Anybody? Why does this matter? You want me to tell you? Because I'm going to. But you can guess if you want. Why does any of this matter? And who says so? So remember the things I said. It brings flexibility, productivity, transparency, quality, satisfaction, and it gives you less risk of building the wrong thing. Anybody ever work on a project, a product, and you deliver it, and the customer goes, huh, that's not quite what we were thinking. Anybody ever worked on one of those? Okay, remember that part where I said at the beginning I used to work in the public and the private sector? Do you know how many times in the public sector we built things that took years to get the requirements? And then we built it and everybody went, oh. Yeah, no, we've changed those. No, we don't know that. No. And you're all like, but we just spent 5 years on this and quite a few millions. What do you mean it's not what you want? Yeah, let's not do that. Because back to that, avoid delays, decrease risk, deliver value. Did it do any of those things? If I built something and then you go, oh, it's not what I want? No. It's complete failure on everybody's part. The person that let you go 5 years building it and you building it for 5 years. Okay? So I'm not going to read all of these things with you, but the bottom line is there is mounds of research, and last year there was quite a bit. A group called Parable actually compiled all the research from McKinsey and Gartner and all the big think tanks, right, that always have something to say. And they found things like teams that are more agile see a 300, that is not a typo, by the way, 300% increase in productivity. You know, that saying no to things that don't deliver value shoots your productivity right up to the top. So, what does this look like? Safe, inclusive spaces with engaged employees. Ooh, that's a big one. Ever sit in a meeting and feel like you can't speak up because what you have to say goes against what everybody else has to say, or you don't feel safe to say it because somebody else is always leading the charge? Anybody ever feel kind of and you sit there with your laptop and you don't say anything because you don't feel comfortable? Yeah. Women in the room, I know you've all felt it. Human intelligence, oh, this is a big one. Human intelligence supported by the right tools and process. So again, we're not throwing the tools and process out, but we're using these things first to make decisions about what makes sense for us. So you're all here this week because you've made a decision. I hope so. I hope nobody was forced to come and they didn't want to come. But you're here because you made a decision that this was important. I hope it wasn't the other way around and somebody said, this is important, so here's your plane ticket. Okay, I hope you all want to be here. Teams, not groups of people. So many times I get called into an organization, they're like, oh, here's team X, they're working on Y. And then I sit and talk, and I'm like, that's not a team. That is a group of people that were told to put the same charge code on their timesheet. And they're using timesheets. That's a group of people. That's not a team. Customer-centric. Now, I do not believe that the customer is always right, so let's just throw that one out, because sometimes they're misguided, uninformed, and don't know what they need. But back to the value, if we focus on what they need to be successful, whether they can tell you or not, that's customer-centric. All right, disruption. It's my middle name, by the way. I told you it was MA, but it's really disruption. Okay. Somebody has to wade in there and go, hold on. Does this make sense? Right time decision making. Not after we built it for 5 years and went, oh crap. Okay. Knowing in the moment, because we're working in an iterative way, that what we're doing is right or wrong, or needs more time. There's not always a right or wrong. It's not black and white. Sometimes you're not sure and you need to keep going. Every step towards the goal, that's the value part. If we're not going toward the goal, we're going away from the goal. And if we're going away from the goal, what are we not doing? Delivering value. Okay, there's a test on this, by the way. Instead of Q&A, we're going to use paper and pencil. So get ready. Building efficiency and risk management, because we're working, like I said, in an iterative way, and we're checking in and making sure we're doing the right thing. We're not just charging. Okay? Flexible, innovative, collaborative. We get criticism. We have feedback. How many people have ever worked on something and you never got any feedback? And then you delivered it and they went, huh. That's back to that. You delivered it and it was the wrong thing. But if you get feedback along the way, how can you build the wrong thing? Unless the person's not giving you honest feedback, because they also work in an environment where they're not allowed to speak their truth as well. Does this resonate? Does this make any sense? Or have I completely lost the plot and you're all like, please, how many more minutes is she going to be up there? I mean, is it resonating? Can you think of real world examples where this has worked or not worked for you? Yeah, okay, good. Then I'll keep going. I didn't draw this. I'm not that clever. But high-performing teams, attributes of high-performing teams. Just take a second and look at that, because we're going to talk about it. And by the way, it's not all rosy. We're going to talk about what's not rosy in a bit. How many of those things, how many of you can say that on your team you can check off 50% or better of those? Sorry, I'm in the way and you can't see, and I keep moving like a fish out of water. Anybody say, okay, we got this 50% or more? This is looking good for us? Okay, then we got work to do. But no worries, I gotcha. Okay. Something I do with teams is called a lift-off. How many people have been to kickoffs for your projects? Okay, now raise your hand if this is what your kickoff looks like. You all get on the Zoom or you get in a meeting, wherever you are. Somebody puts up a PowerPoint. Did I lose anybody yet? There's always a PowerPoint, right? Okay. And it's name of the project on the first slide. Next slide, name of the project administrator or monitor. Next slide, team members. Next slide, goals. Next slide, budget. Next slide, project deadline. Thank you for coming. Did I not describe the last kickoff you went to? Anybody that's not how your kickoffs go? Because that's how a kickoff goes. What value did that bring? None. But if you do a lift-off and you take the time to build the team and get to know each other, I know, feel good stuff, and think about your values, think about your goals, think about where you're going, and here's one, talk about how you want to work. How many of you on your teams have a work plan or a work charter and you all agree on how you're going to work? Oh, I have work to do here. Oh, it's another whole workshop. For those that don't want to attend the hackathon, I'm right, no, just kidding. It is critical that you know how you're going to work together and what you're going to do when it doesn't work. Because you can do all the team building and collaborative work together, and there's always going to be a point where something goes wrong, and knowing how to come through that. When you do that, then this happens. All right, survey says, did you know in the tech industry that only about 13% of people leave a job because of money as the only reason? Now, we have a bit of a reputation in tech that we're constantly moving around getting higher salaries, especially in the US where I come from. It's like a big thing that they talk about, but it's not a reality. Only 13% of people in the US leave a high-paying tech job because they're going to get more money. They leave because of these things. They leave because there's not a healthy culture. They leave because they have a crappy manager who has no chance of ever being a leader. So think about that. They only 13% of the time leave only because of money. That doesn't mean that money's not a factor, because if you're not being paid for the work that you're doing, that's important. But only 13% leave because of money only. They leave because these things aren't working for them, that they're not getting recognition. They're not being valued. Because just like we have to deliver value in our work, we have to give value to people as well. All right, the results. So I've talked about all this fancy schmancy stuff, but let's talk about some results that I have seen personally. So one of my gigs in the public sector was with air traffic. Air traffic controllers, by the way, anybody in here an air traffic controller, retired or otherwise? No? Okay. Air traffic controllers speak a language that none of us understand. Just like if you went somewhere and started talking about Julia, people would be like, I understand the words, but I don't know what they're saying. Okay? I didn't know any air traffic language when I started working with these teams. And for the first 3 months, I would sit in meetings and I would have a massive headache because I had no idea what they were saying. But I learned. Here's some of the things that we saw. They had a 20% increase in output. 50% less rewriting of code. Wow, wouldn't that be nice? And 100% more agile mindset, to the point where they would call me out if I started focusing on process. Whew. Okay. Another group. When I joined them, they had not delivered any solid code in 5 years. Can you imagine? 3 months, we had a new module. 6 months, we had a full release and had updated the infrastructure, just by changing how they were working. And we started with process. Why did we start with process? Process is easy for our brains to get around, especially in tech. And then we worked on the team and how they worked. Okay? One group had never worked remotely. And all of a sudden there was this pandemic thing. And whoo boy, Then it ended, and they were like, huh. First ever fully remote team. We hired the entire team of 10 people in 3 weeks. That included the interviews, the vetting, all the things that have to be done in HR, et cetera, et cetera. Onboarded them, and in 10 weeks, a group of 10 people who had never worked together, half of whom did not have the technical expertise, but had the mindset, were all up to speed and delivering. So it does work. 80% reduced time to delivery. 75, one group saw a 75% reduction in non-value added work. Can you imagine 3/4 of your day is a waste of time? And how elevating that is when you suddenly are not wasting time. All right, let's move along. Time is ticking. Okay. Team building, connecting, qualifying, showing value, and building skills. We have talked about all of that. Now, the good, the bad, and the ugly quickly so we can wrap this up so you can get to the actual thing of talking about Julia, which I know you're all waiting for. Agile adoption by the numbers. Agility in software teams went from 37% increase in 2020 to 86% in, just 1 year later. What was happening in that time? Suddenly, the world turned upside down and we had to rethink how we were working. And sometimes it takes a catastrophe for change, but wouldn't it be nice if we could change without a catastrophe to force us to do it? And then go, oh! Okay. Sales on agile teams, 200% increase in sales for those that need to see the money part of it. 200% increase in sales when you change how you work. Okay, that's the good part. But like I said, it's not all rosy because change is hard. This is what happens when you have some people who want to change and some people who don't, or can't, or won't. And you see things like this. 74% of organizations say that they use frameworks, but their culture doesn't support it. That's that process thing. So they did the process thing. By the way, anybody that wants to learn Scrum on the break, I can teach you in 15 minutes. And you're like, I thought the class was 3 days. Yes, I can teach you in 15 minutes. It's process. But when you change how you think, you see a difference. The other ones are sad. 13% said that they felt like that their management supported them. Okay. 38% they don't get any support. 62% of management believes it has no implication. It does. You cannot be a leader and say, yeah, that sounds great, go ahead. Let me know how it turns out. No, that does not work. So this is the sad part of it. 72% of leaders think they are effective. Their employees disagree. So if you don't go into it with your eyes open, knowing we don't want to just focus on process, but we want to change how we're working and what we do, stuff's going to happen. That happens all the time. Back to the goals that we aren't meeting. We set them, we're not getting there. What's happening in the process? All right. We're not going to do this. I want you to actually just think about it. If you had to rate your organization on these things, can you see or am I in your way again? By the way, for those doing the aesthetics, the stage is not in a good place for these people. Leadership, psychological safety, inclusiveness, collaboration, mindset, team onboarding, and I'm not talking about the government HR paperwork stuff, and ways of working. If you had to rate your organization on those, and I believe they're going to make this presentation available to all of you so you can have it, how would you rate yourselves? Just thinking on a 1 to 10, 10 being we are amazing, and 1 being I don't even know what those words mean. How would you rate your organization? Think about that. I'm going to leave you with that one. If you want to read more about this, I have apparently copious amounts of time on my hand because I have loads of free resources. You can just go sign up and read things I didn't write. There's also a whole library of things I did write, 200 of them to be exact. But loads of information so you can learn more about the frameworks and the ways of working and everything in between. And I am going to be here all week. I'll be doing stand-up Thursday night at the after hours. But if you scan that code, it has my LinkedIn, it has my website, and it also has a link if you want to get together this week and actually say, hey, at 3 o'clock on Thursday, I'd like to talk to you. Completely free. Let's have a chat. Even if you're just like, it made me really sad when you said that, can we talk about it? That's fine too. But I am here if you want to talk more about this and get a little bit of a teeny tiny break from writing code. So on that note, we probably have time for one question, because I talk a lot. But I am here all week for questions, and happy to answer them. And then we're going to get into, I think, an intro to Julia, yeah? One question, the biggest question. You're like, no, I don't want to ask my question because it might not be big enough. All right, on that note, thank you for bearing with me. The presentation will be available. I'll be here all week. You have the resources, and now let's learn something about Julia. And my little old school pen. All right, thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Indra, for this amazing presentation. We'll now get our hands on Julia, and we'll start with the introduction to Julia. Julia Language Context and Basic Concepts by Mrs. Iga.
Iga Szczęśniak.
It's been almost 2 years and I still can't spell it. And Mr. Julio Offiman. So Iga is a project developer at the Earth Observation Laboratory of the AirCentre. She holds a master's degree in geoinformatics, photogrammetry, and remote sensing obtained from the University of Science and Technology. Of? Your university?
Of Science and Technology.
Oh.
Yeah.
IGA is involved in the implementation of projects using Earth observation data and the Internet of Things, as well as the Julia programming language. Furthermore, she's interested in the commercialization of technology and sustainable development. Currently, she's pursuing a master's program in space entrepreneurship at the European Institute for Innovation and Sustainability. I will already introduce Dr. Offiman. He has more than 10 years of experience developing advanced statistical software for geosciences. He's a creator and lead developer of the geostats.jl framework, as well as various other open source projects that are widely used by the Julia language community. His career goals include, first, advancing the field of machine learning and artificial intelligence to account for challenges that are unique to geosciences. Second, establishing new methodologies for uncertainty, quantification, and decision-making involving the use of natural resources in the planet. And to achieve these goals, he founded Arpeggio, a software company that offers consulting services and high-performance products written in Julia. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mariana. Okay. Okay, so let's start. Hello, everyone. First of all, thanks a lot for coming. My name is Iga, and I'm a project developer at the AirCentre. And today I will give you a gentle introduction to the Julia language, just to make sure that everyone here in the room is at the same page, and we will not have any problems with the Julia installation and understanding of the syntax later on. If you read my email that I sent on the Friday, you should have at this point downloaded Julia, at least version 1.9 on your computers, and Visual Studio Code, or if you are using any other editor, that's also fine. It's up to you. And if you still didn't, just please download it and go back to the links that I sent. And we are going to work with the notebook that you can find on the GitHub repository for the workshop. The GitHub repository you can find on the workshop website, and then there is a link. You basically clone this repo on your computers, and you can open it in the Visual Studio Code. So once you are downloading, let's talk about the Julia context, and I will present a few facts about the Julia. So it is relatively a new language. It was created in 2012 at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and the first version was released in 2018, and the latest version is Julia 1.10, and it has been released in December last year.
Can I interrupt you?
Yeah.
So hi everyone, my name is Julio. I'm with Iga here in this presentation. So my role here is I'll be passing through the table. If you have any issues with the installation or anything, I'll be supporting the presentation. So just raise your hand if you have issues.
If you have any questions on the way, just ask, and we will be here to help you, like to make this code running for you. And later on the afternoon, you will not have problems. Yeah. So Julia is an open source language. It has a high level syntax and is known for the high performance and high speed. It is known that it solves the so-called two-language problem. So it is fast as the C language and has a user-friendly syntax like Python or MATLAB. Julia is a dynamically typed language and just-in-time compiled, and it supports parallel computing as well. So this is another advantage. Julia is a good option for all kinds of data science applications and technical computing and the scientific machine learning. From the Earth observation perspective, it is a nice ecosystem to work with because it is good for the heavy data sets such as those generated by the Earth observation satellites, the clouds of points and stuff. So it has a better performance than Python in some cases. So I hope you at this point have downloaded the notebook and open it. Is anyone having a problem? So I will start just running this. So to check out the info version, you basically use the version info function or simply write a version and you can access this information. The first thing that you may want to do is defining variables. So to define a variable, you basically write a variable name and then assign a value to this. When your variable is a string, you need to use brackets. And when it is numeric, you simply write it as it is. Can you maybe maximize? Yeah. Is the size good? Okay. To check out the type of your variable.
Maybe you need to command plus to increase the.
Command plus more.
Yeah.
Okay. Is the size good for you right now, or more?
I think you will never be good for the people who you. You have to follow the screen. Yeah, you have to see it on the screen.
Okay.
No way there.
So yeah, to get information about the type of your variable, we simply use the type of function, and here our variables were string and integer. We can convert the variables from one type to another, and here we are going to convert the integer to float. So for the printing, we are going to use the println function, and we can use the $sign to insert the existing variables into strings. We can use the asterisk sign for concatenation of the strings. So if we want to merge them together, we are going to use this. The math syntax is super easy. You will see it's very intuitive, and it goes like this. Then when we start working with many variables around, it is better to store them in structures. So in Julia, we can define the custom structures with the struct, and they can store the multiple pieces of data in a one format, kind of. And then we need to remember that structs are immutable, so it means that when we assign value to them, then we cannot change them later. Here we are going to create a struct called location, and to access the field names of this struct, we are going to use the field names function. We see that the struct has a name, latitude, longitude, and information whether it is an island or not. We are going to test it for Terceira. It works, and then Paris also works. Then, on the other hand, if we want to update any of these fields, we are going to use a mutable struct, and we can define it in Julia using a mutable struct and keywords. We are going to test it for Terceira and update the field name to be an area code, basically, instead of the full name, and we see that it is updated. Okay, perfect. Then we have native data structures in Julia. First, it's tuples. Tuples are order sequences of elements, and they allow indexing, so we can access them by order. But we need to remember they are immutable, so we cannot update their fields later on. We are going to create a mytuple example and access it by element. We can store in these tuples different types of elements. Here we have the integer, string, and float. And just one remark, Julia is a one-base indexing, not zero-base like Python. So if you want to access the first element, you basically write 1 instead of 0, for those of you who are used to Python. And then we have a name tuples. They are basically like a regular tuples, but they assign name to each element, and then we can call these elements by order or by name, and check the type of name tuple as well. Dictionaries. Dictionaries, they can store data sets that are related to each other. So, for example, a contacts list, like you assign a certain person to a certain phone number, and they are mutable, so we can update their fields, but we cannot index into them. So let's create the example dictionary and access it by person. We can add another entry to the dictionary like this, and we see that it updated. To remove elements from a dictionary, we are going to use the pop function with an exclamation mark. I will explain what is this exclamation mark later on, but for now, let's see that it is removing. All right. However, we cannot update their fields if we once assign it. So then we have arrays. They are both mutable and order, so it means we can update their fields and index into them. Let's create the example array of the best movies and access the first best movie, which is Harry Potter. We can update it to be the Godfather, for example, and we see that it is updated. We can edit our arrays and add elements and remove them with push and pop functions. And push is adding a new element, and then pop is removing. We see that it removed. And yeah, arrays can have any number of dimensions, and they can store other arrays as well. The common arrays that you may work with are zeros and ones, so you can use these functions to create them. For the concatenation of the arrays, we can use the cat function. This is a built-in function in Julia, And it works like this. When we have two vectors, we can concatenate them along the first dimension with this result, and then along the second dimension is giving this result. Alternatively, to get those, we can use vcat and hcat functions, and then we don't need to specify these dimensions. So for the array inspection, we can use L-type function to see the elements type. Then we are going to use length to get the total number of elements of the array, endings to get the number of dimensions, and we can check out the size. We can do indexing on vectors and matrices. First, let's do for the vector, so we can access its third element in this way. We can access the last element of the vector by using AND. For the matrix, if we want to access a certain element, for, let's say the second row and the first column, we are going to write it like this. For the slicing of vectors and matrices, we are going to use col, and then we access all elements from the second until the fourth elements. Yeah. And for the matrix, if we want to access the second row, then we first specify this row and then use col. Yeah, we can add some. We can manipulate our arrays and, for example, add another value or the entire row, and then it updates. For the multiplication, let's first create a random matrix called A, and the vectors filled with ones. We can multiply them by using the asterisk. For the transposition, we are basically using the apostrophe, or there is another function called transpose, and it's giving the same result. And we can multiply two matrices like this. Then we have loops. The syntax for a while loop in Julia is the following. We can use it, for example, to iterate elements over an array. And then we have a for loop. We could use it for the same. And there are two ways. We can use in, or we can use the element of symbol instead. And then we have a conditionals. Let's try it for. Let's try to write an example conditional statement that prints a number if the number is even, and then it prints the string odd if the number is odd. We can do this with the following code, and alternatively we can rewrite it with using the ternary operators, and then it's going to be just one line of the code. And this is a more Julia way to write the conditional statement, I would say. To define, we can define the functions in different ways. The basic syntax to define the function is by using function and end keywords. And let's define a function that prints, hi, it's great to see you, and test it. And then we define the function that calculates the square of the number, and we see that it works. Alternatively, we could declare these functions in just a single line like this, and they are giving the same results. Or we could have declared them as the anonymous function, and then we need to use the arrow, and it is giving same result. And now it's a little exercise for you. You can play around with declaring the function and try to make a function that prints hello Julia if the given name is Julia, and then prints hello world if the given name is different. And you can do this, and below there is an answer. And now let's talk about the difference between the mutating and the non-mutating functions. So let's see this difference for the example function sort that sorts the elements of the array. So we create a vector and apply this sort function into this, and we see that it orders ascending way. However, if we access the, if we want to see the variable again, it is not updated. So to perform a mutation on its arguments, we are going to use the exclamation mark. And if we apply it to the sort function, then it changes the original variable. Then we have a broadcasting. This is a technique that we can use to apply a function to each element of an array or a collection without using the loops. We declare before we have declared the function that calculates the square of the number, and we are going to apply the broadcasting, and then it is applying to all elements of this. And alternatively, we could multiply each element of the matrix by the scalar with the broadcasting. So let's define the matrix and the scalar, and the result is like this. The broadcasting is applying this dot before the multiplication sign. Okay. Then we have multiple dispatch. This is a key feature of Julia that makes the code fast and generic. So as we discussed before, Julia is a dynamically typed language, and it means that we don't need to specify the type of the input argument when we declare a function. This is optional because Julia does it on the fly. However, we can we can still specify this type. And if we create a function called add and then specify the type of its arguments x and y as integers, we can later create exactly the same function with another type, and then it doesn't mean that we rewrite or replace any of these functions. It's just we add another method to the generic function called add. And it works for both types of data. So here we have the result for the integers and the result for the floats. If we want to see how many methods we have assigned to the function, then we are going to use the methods. And we see there are two methods for the generic function add. To see which method is being dispatched, we are going to use add which, and then write the function. All right. Another advantage of Julia is that it has a built-in package manager called PKG. This is eliminating the need for external tools like Anaconda, for example. And the basic application of this package manager is for installing and uninstalling the packages, creating the environments, and dealing with the dependencies. So to start using this package manager, we basically need to write the keyword using and then PKG. And to see the package's status, we are going to use pkg.status and the parentheses. And we have a list of which packages are downloaded in here. To activate the environment, we are going to use pkg activate. And we need to remember that first time, if we are using the package on a certain Julia applications installation, then we need to add this package, and we can add the packages with pkg.add, and then we are specifying the package name like this. All right. We are adding a bunch of packages that we are going to use later in the hands-on, and every time we use Julia, first time we need to load these packages with the using keyword. So to start using, for example, package called data frames, we need to write this keyword using and then data frames, the name of the package. All right, so now we are going to work a little bit with the tabular data, and I'm sure that every one of you at some point work with the tabular data, and this is useful for everyone. And the kind of basic packages to work with this are csv.jl, downloads, data frames, and the statistics. And now we are going to explore some of their features I would like to open the notebook called Exercise 1, and we are going to run it. It's in the same folder that you downloaded from GitHub. So in this hands-on, we are going to see the performance of the Internet of Things sensors that we have installed on Terceira Island. They are measuring for us data like temperature and humidity every hour, and we are going to compare them with the National Meteorological Station called IPMA. So these data are coming in a CSV format, and I'm going to use those packages, CSV, data frames, downloads, and the statistics to play around a little bit. We are going to load the data for the two sensors, and then for the two IoT sensors, and then for the meteorological reference station, and then calculate the correlation. So first, if we want to read the CSV file, we are going to use the csv.jl package and the read function. It's really straightforward. We just need to specify the path where we store our data, and then the data type. And I'm using the data frames here. By the way, to not print all of the records, we are going to use the colon in the end of the line, and then it doesn't print. To get a quick preview of data, we can narrow it down to display only 10 first records, and then it is like this. So we have our data downloaded over there. We see that it has a bunch of columns like timestamp, the station ID, some meteorological variables, and we also notice some missing values in it that we want to remove. And now I'm gonna select the columns of my interest, and we can do this with the select functions from the dataframes.jl, and I'm using the exclamation mark syntax to actually update my table. So to access the names of the columns for this data frame, I can use the names function and then specify the variable. Okay, then we are going to download the data for another sensors from the internet. We can download it using the downloads.jl package. And first we specify the path, the web link, and then the path where we want to store it on our machines. So then I'm gonna read this data again with the csv.jl and select columns that I'm interested in. So before we did select the columns that we want to keep, and now we are going to select the columns that we want to exclude. So it is the other way around. To join two tables, we basically use the join function that is included in the data frames package. It has different types of joins, like the left join, right join, semi-join, inner join, outer join, and you can basically choose which ones are good for your data. Here I'm going to use the left join. And we have our tables joined over there. However, there is some missing values in our data set, and normally we would like to remove them. So to remove the missing values, we are going to use the drop missing function. And now we have it removed. And at some point, when we did all of those modifications in our tables, we want to write it back to the CSV file again. And we can do this with the CSV package again with the write function. And it's like this. And now I'm going to calculate the mean values of temperature and humidity. And for this, and add an additional column to the data frame. So for this, I'm going to use the mean function from the statistics.jl package, and it calculates those mean values. And to add a new column to the data frame, we can use the following. We calculate the correlation coefficients for the both variables like temperature and humidity, and round them to 2 decimal places. To get the number of observations or the number of rows, we can use the size function, and we have in our table 3,236 records right now. Then the useful functions are minimum and maximum, and they work for the dates as well. So our data is actually around 1 year of the time window. And now it's the time to visualize this data to get some more insights. And for this, I am using Maki.jl, and its backend for the scientific plotting called Cairo-Maki. However, you can use others, like other frameworks like plots. It's up to you. And I'm going to plot this data from 2 IoT sensors. Actually, we can add the title, the X and Y labels, change the color, the size of the plot, and it's up to you. I will add the information about the correlation coefficient and the number of observations. I think it is a good idea. And the correlation for the humidity was 0.77. Which is not that bad. And now let's see how these measurements look like compared to each other. So I'm going to plot it with the lines plot, and we can see nicely the differences between the both sensors for the humidity. Now let's see everything for the temperature. The correlation of the temperature was better, was 0.92, and if we see the measurements, we can notice that in the beginning it was really great coverage, but then it was some shift later on. It will be interesting to compare those mean values with the national reference station So I'm going to repeat those steps and read the data for the reference station and update the tables. I'm calculating the correlation coefficients, and here we got the values of the correlation coefficient between mean values for the IoT sensors and the reference meteorological station. It was actually really good, 0.98. I can play a little bit with the layout and visualize both plots next to each other. So we see that definitely in the beginning the coverage was great, and then it was some shift. Now I'm going to do the same for the humidity, which was not that great as the temperature. The correlation was 0.74, and I'm plotting here the correlation and the measurements next to each other. And it is like this. So the one cool finding is that the LoRaWAN low-cost sensors have a better performance for the temperature than the humidity. Now let's go back to the main notebook. I'm going to skip all this part about the tabular data because we just did this hands-on, but you can take a look afterwards if you want to. And just to remark, I wanted to add where to seek help if you have any problems with your code or find any bug. Actually, Julia has a really great user community, and people are really friendly and want to help you. And it has really fast-growing community. So every year there are newcomers, and it's always a good time to start. And the main help desk channels to seek help is a discourse forum and the Julia Slack. And there is a bonus for those who are working with geospatial data. There is a Julia Geo channel. So for specifically problems related to this spatial data, I would recommend to reach out there. And if you have any problem, you can always open an issue on GitHub, and then it will help the developers to find the bug and fix it later on. And that's all for the introduction. I hope you were able to run it, everyone. And then on the afternoon, we are going to have more advanced sessions, and I hope you will be ready.
Thank you, Iga.
If Julia wants to add anything, then okay. Yeah, so we did a little bit shorter than planned, but it's fine.
Okay. So now for those that are online, we are doing a break for lunch. We'll be back at 1. For those who are here, the lunch it's upstairs in the restaurant, and it starts at midday. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, I was a bit faster.
Done?
Yeah.
This afternoon we can also talk with Julian.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to.